We are joined by Gal Messenger, Chief Security Officer at Signify. We are joined by Menno Vlietstra, CIO at Urenco, Patrick Versteeg, CISO at Vitera, Vincent Thieler, CISO at Cybersprint, and then very soon, Angelos Vitalis, CISO at Transdev Nederland. And as before, we are very, very grateful to be moderated by Daniel van Slochteren, Chief Executive Officer at Kahuna Managing Security. Daniel, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Willem. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Gal, Patrick, Angelos, and Vincent. And Menno, of course, my apologies. So today we're going to have a panel discussion about the topic, how can we bring business and cybersecurity together? Well, our business cybersecurity doesn't exist that long. And what we learned from the last, decennia is that often we see technology-driven cycles in all the companies related to fixing the problems, but we never listen that well to the business requirements. So that's what we're going to talk today about. But just to start with, can everybody hear me well? Just to make sure. Yes?
As always, Daniel, as always.
So that's great to hear. I have some really tricky questions to all of you this morning. So it's 9 o'clock. I hope you all had your coffee. And if it's too hard, then you can always put yourself on mute or make this not my cup of tea. But to start with, let's start wide. It's cybersecurity, it's physical security. But what I was curious about, who's the top post holder for security in a company? Should it be the CISO, the CSO, the CIO, somebody else? And what should be their background? Because it's really wide open. So maybe, Menno, could you give me an answer to this question?
Yeah, I would like to give a non-obvious answer. So my answer would be the head of compliance. And why is that? Because physical security is under that person. He also has to report in the I work in the nuclear sector. He also has to report to the nuclear regulators on information security as well as on IT issues. And he is liable in person, so he goes to prison if anything goes wrong. So that is a good spot to combine all these disciplines.
Gail?
I don't agree there.
Okay, go ahead, Patrick. You first, and then Gail.
I think you have a fair point for your business there, but in normal, at least in normal Dutch businesses, if cybersecurity gets broken, nobody goes to prison. That's something you see in possibly in the US or in other heavy regulated countries like Australia, but you don't see that in the Netherlands. So
so they do report to the to MI6, the equivalent in the Netherlands. So yeah, they are personally liable.
Yeah, but that's a very, very niche market in the Netherlands.
Yeah, true.
Me, basically, in the end, responsible for cybersecurity, it's the CEO. He needs to weigh business risk against business opportunity and see what's going on there. And if that's too hard of a job for the CEO because he has too much on his mind, it's something for the CFO. I think that's what you normally see, and I think that's the right spot. And if we mature and if we grow in the future, possibly the CIO/CISO has a board function, which we see as an evolving function, and then it lies with that person. But laying it with any other person or trying to change the role as we're still growing into the role, and a lot of companies don't even have a CISO. So let's take Bakker Logistics, for instance. They were hacked last month. That led to a cheese shortage at one of the biggest grocery shops in the Netherlands. They didn't even have a CISO. So before changing the roles, before amending something, my stand is CEO, otherwise CFO, or a CISO board position. but don't start changing things.
Yeah, what's your opinion?
If I may, because I look at it from a wider perspective, because we do have a fully consolidated security organization in Signify. So I think the probably reality is between Menno and Patrick. So Menno is coming from a heavily regulated industry with special needs. It's a niche market, as Patrick said. It is indeed under different regulations. For us as a business or commercial companies, we are in a less regulated environment, of course. And what we are looking is that we are structured according to a target operating model, which is the 3 lines of defense. And as the security resides in the second line of defense, and the other functions in third or in first, IT in first. And this is why for us, all assurance functions, including security or information security, should be in the second line of defense and not in the first. For this reason, we separated segregation of duties. We separated the IT security from the IT, and we move it to the second line of defense into the security group, which is completely threat-based under strong risk management, and all is consolidated and happening in the first line. The reasons of this model, as you know, is to avoid conflict of interest, because information security is assurance and control, IT is operation, and wherever you put controls under operations, you rise with conflict of interest. So in order to avoid this, we consolidated everything in an enhanced second line of defense under one group.
So it's not possible to put this in one person, because I was also wondering what's the background of the person.
So we did it in one person. We did it in one person, which is myself. And then another company can choose a different person, as long as it's consolidated in the second line of defense under one person, with different background per needs of different business and different industries. So I don't think there is one size fits all or one rule fits all.
No ideal world?
No, definitely not.
Vincent, what's your opinion about this topic? You're really quiet, Vincent.
I think
You're
you're mute,
mute.
Vincent.
Hopefully this works better.
Yes, this works better.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Your
Different
opinion.
microphone. Sorry about that. No, so I've been working in financial industry for not the last year, but before that, for more than 10 years. And we had a lot of discussions within financial industry on how to solve this. I had a lot of discussions with CISOs, CSOs, or equivalents of that, or risk managers or CROs. And what you see in practice, and I've seen all models working in several organizations, but my personal opinion is that security and risk are 2 different things. They are aligned, but they're not the same. So for me, if you look at the 3-tier model, where you have first line, second line risk, and third line audit, the first line is always responsible to do security. As soon as you put all the baskets in your risk department, first line will stop thinking. They will not think anymore on how to solve their security risks. So at least that's what I saw in practice. So one of the fellow CISOs I worked for and with always said, the stronger your second line is, the weaker your first line is. So sorry for the complete opposite, Gal, but for me, for me, risk is a monitoring function and a goal setting and policy making function, not so much a operational function. And I think security is the operational department that creates resilience of your operations for certain threats. So for me, my opinion is different. So operation security should be in first line. I see that work in practice. Also because the CO, CTO function also in the financial industry is converging into one function. So resilience should be in one basket, at least on operational level, and monitoring should be on a second level. At least that's my opinion. Thank you, Daniel.
Vincent, if I may, I don't see any contradiction because there are different risk is all over the organization, in the third line, in the second line, in the first line. And how you manage the risk is, again, it's all over the organization. And the fact that the second line create the control framework and does the insurance and make sure that it's deployed in the first line and it's effective and it's a circular process doesn't say that doesn't exonerate the first line from doing anything in security. So that's why I just simplify the model. Of course, it's for much deeper discussion, maybe for a whole day or a whole week.
We can do this for all day, guys.
Of course. Well,
other sessions.
yeah, well, of course. So, of course, when you do this model, you don't forget that that you need to embed security all across the business, and security is being embedded in the first line. For example, if I take one of my groups is a product security. So the fact that we are doing assurance and we are testing the security doesn't say that we are not embedded in the full process of development of products, because we are. Doesn't say that we don't build a special way to certify and bring skills to the engineers that develop new products, because we do. Doesn't, and part of these skills is for them to exercise and test and see they are passing through certain toll gates before a commercial release of a product. And then we are coming as an assurance function and doing independent second line of defense, and this is what it means, segregation of duties. And we are doing independent to the business our test before it's going out there to the customer, whether it's product, service, system, etc. So it's just to say that we are on the same camp. We just have to drill a bit deeper to the structure of the third line of defense in order to come up with the same truth.
Thank you, Gal. So then I want to go back to Menno, because I started with Menno with this question. What do you think about the opinions of the other people?
I would like to make two remarks. On the one hand, it was said that nuclear is a niche market. That is the case, but if you look at the governance setup between, and therefore I'm aligned with Patrick, I think, and that applies for the nuclear sector as well as the pharmaceutical sector where I used to work, is the Hadley responsibility. So going to prison is given to the CEO, managing director of a company, as well as the head of compliance. So it's two in a box. So in that sense, there's not so much different between the answer. The CEO is responsible in pharma, and that's how it works. And nuclear, it's the managing director and the head of compliance who are responsible. That's just a remark I wanted to make.
Menno, you are all safe.
Sorry?
All of you are safe.
No, yeah, it is quite a responsibility, you know, and I think we all say, you know, you have to bring all these disciplines together. So yeah, I think we're in that sense the answers can be reconciled, I would say.
Well, thank you for all the answers. There is not a holy grail. There's not one answer. I think it's also depending a little bit of the vertical. I hear some from financial perspective, from pharmaceutical, from industrial. But the topic for today. So this was only just an easy question: who should be the post holder? But now it's going to become more interesting, because the topic for today is about bringing both worlds together. Business and cyber. So how can we bring those both worlds together, Menno?
Yeah, in the end, by good collaboration. You know, the first, the second, and the third line, cyber, IT. Both in IT domains and OT, because you know the domain in manufacturing companies, the security domain is expanding and expanding, because you have more and more areas which are internet facing. Everything is internet facing. It is in the end by collaboration between all these disciplines.
That's interesting, because I'm in the cyber business for 15, 16, 70 years, almost like that. And I see a lot, but I still see a lot of technology-driven cycles in all companies. And a lot of the companies I do know who are here today. So Patrick, what is your opinion about this? Because I think there is a big gap between business and cyber. What do you think?
I think there's a big gap there, and there predominantly it comes because the people who are currently responsible for cybersecurity, no offense, guys in the panel or people listening, come from a technical background. So people like me, and they think in boxes. They think in just another tool, just another antivirus, just another firewall, just another X product, and talk in that language as well. So we talk in bits and bytes, and we talk about what most of us do: fear, uncertainty, and doubt, because we don't know how to tell the story otherwise. So we point to the hack of SolarWinds, or we point to the hack of the oil company of last week, or we point to that research company that got hacked over the weekend by some intern that just disabled Windows Defender, and we scare people out of their socks. And that's the way how we do it normally. I think the best way to do it is to tap into what the business needs, or what the business thinks is the most important thing. So if I look into the realm of OT, for instance, the company I currently work for has safety and security of their personnel at the highest level. So if we start talking about the numbers and our figures, we talk about personal safety and security first, and then we start to talk about commercials. So if I want to do something in that realm, I'm going to talk about how I'm going to support that main target of keeping people safe and secure. And then you can tie that to cybersecurity. So that's the way how I, for instance, would tie more investments in cybersecurity in the OT realm, for instance, towards business goals. Business goals are keeping people safe, secure, minimal type of injuries or fatalities. And with a sound cybersecurity program, I can help the business with that.
Okay, Patrick, thank you. So, Vincent, what do you think about this? What's your opinion?
Yeah, so yeah, so for me, I think to get the business and IT working together, the only way is to actually not collaborating but working in the same team. So in the past we were siloed between IT, and IT was really working on their stuff. But the only way to go forward, and that's what I've also seen in practice, is that if you have business people becoming product owners, or CISOs, or business people becoming CISOs, the only way to do that is to work together in teams with a business perspective and a IT perspective. It's undoable to really work together, because you will only speak to the same language as soon as you will start working on a day-by-day basis, and not see each other once a month or every other 3 weeks during demo.
Are you trying to tell me that the CISO should, or the CSO should, have daily meetings with the CFO and the CEO? Or how?
Yeah, so for me, it's, of course, they should be all in the same MT and work together. So from a managerial perspective, it should be a standard subject on board or board -1 level, and it should not. So it should be embedded in your normal process. It should not be something that you do as an afterthought. Of course, we are already saying that for years. But what I also see in finance, that a lot of CISOs don't have an IT background anymore. They have a fraud or business operations background.
That's something we're going to talk about later on this session. Gail, what do you think about, is there still a big gap between business and cyber?
Well, there is a gap. That's a reality. It shouldn't exist, but there is. I think part of the fault is ourselves, that maybe we are too much in the thinking in boxes and less business oriented. So I think the key word for me is enabling. And in order to become an organization which enables a business, then of course, as Vincent say, we have to embed really at early phases into the business. And how do we embed? So in spirit, we have to become from orders and instructions organization to a service organization. And organizations that allows a business also can turn from a pure cost center to a profit center. Because if you really embed yourself well into the business and listen to the business need and does it and become a service giver or grantor, then the rest will come much more easy, and the business will appreciate it, and then it's quite clear how to pass from a dollar spender to a dollar earner, or euro spender to a euro earner. This is what we are working now in my organization after we build a central function, is to see how to turn it into a profit center, and there are so many ways. And by doing it, you have to work with business segments, and really you are becoming more and more an enabler of the business. That's for me the only way in our commercial environment to do so.
And what about communication? Because look, I give an example. All of you are responsible for cybersecurity in company, right? If I'm wrong, please correct me. So
not responsible, Daniel.
Okay, you're not responsible.
Now, so the CIO is responsible. I'm delegated responsible.
That's and you're below this. You are reporting to the
CIO. Yes, and he's responsible.
So the team of the CIO, most of the team members in your team are people with a technical background. Do you have, for example, well, we all know that creating awareness, bringing the business and both worlds together, communication, marketing is key in this part. Do you have marketeers and communication managers in your team? Vincent, Gail, Menno, Patrick, tell me, do you have those people in your team?
I have, yeah, so for us in the GRC department, so we have 4 departments that are reporting to me. So the CISO and the head of cyber, which is one function, the product security, the operation security, which is what we call the physical security, and the GRC. In the GRC department, in the awareness and education, because these are the people that communicate. So I have the people and the skills that do and responsible and touch any communications that we do as a group internally. And sometimes also we need to do it with customers externally, or third parties or service providers that we want to run. For example, same awareness programs that we do internally with an external third-party service provider. So I have this little group that is responsible on the communication and awareness and training.
What about you, Menno? Do you have a communication marketing team?
No, I wish. So I think it's a really good question. We don't, and you see almost in everyday life the consequences of that. Just to mention an example, there's of course the differences between vulnerability and patch management. And yesterday we had an interview of one of our guys who was very proud that he does really good patch management. And he said in the interview that the vulnerabilities that have come down so much, and that you lead to a huge conflict in the company. It was escalated to the CEO because he was not responsible for vulnerability. Yeah, so it shows how important communication and collaboration is. And yes, we need more of that, absolutely.
So how can we adopt more marketeers and communication managers into our industry?
Yeah, my answer is, and the answer has been given also by Patrick and others, that there's a lot of very technical people, very technical people in these functions, and they have to grow broader, more risk business oriented, because it is cyber is business. So the people have to grow broader would be my answer. Concretely, that person yesterday, yeah, he should be teached that to be careful with roles and responsibilities and be a little bit smoother in his communication. On the other hand, also the people who then escalate, also technical people, of course, you know, okay, let that guy make a little mistake.
But if
Daniel,
sorry, go ahead.
I think the answer here is the answer that Vincent already gave. You need to work together. So getting marketeers and communications into the cybersecurity team, I think that will be very hard. Me leading people who are in marketing and in communications, but I have a very good connection with the marketing and the communications team and HR, helping me out, setting up all the communications I need. And they make sure that it's in the right format, the right wording, that the people can read the technical mumbo jumbo that we're writing. So that works very well. But I'm aligned here with Vincent. I don't need actual marketing and communications in my team as long as I am having access to people with that skills. There's a difference.
So then we move forward because I still have a lot of questions. So we talked about business and we talked about cyber, but how do you translate a business risk into IT security solutions? And can some of you give me an example of a success story in this case? Gail?
Well, look, we have, I'll take an example. And again, Vincent mentioned cyber and IT together, but cyber is much wider. It's going to products and many other fields. So that's for me one of the mistakes we are living in, that we think cyber and IT are the same. They are not. They are parts. They are not the same parts. IT is part of a whole, which is a cyber. So, for example, if you, for us, we have a heavy footprint in the IoT world because we have a lot of connected devices. For example, street poles with luminaires that are connected. So in a let's say a nice sized neighborhood in a city, you can have hundreds of thousands of them. So we have immediately a large footprint globally, and then we have the need to protect it. So when you analyze the threat environment and the risk, and you come with certain vulnerabilities that of course are driven from attacks and attacks methodologies on products or the networks that support itself, and you build layers of security and customers today more and more in favor of paying for a solution which is not only safe but also secure. And then it creates a new business case that you can sell more security around your products or services. Of course, you always have the duty to give the basics, but you can develop a whole set of business around it and expand the business and the business model and diversify them. So this is an opportunity, as I said, to move as a security into the business world and to have them the two different type of people conversating because the common ground will be the customer and the quality and the service that you give to the customers. So that's a way that for example, we are taking one of the ways.
Manu, can you give me an example?
So basically, you're asking for examples where business risks are mitigated by cyber solutions.
Yes.
I think there are multiple. The obvious one is let's say take document marking. Right, document marking is a risk if you don't do that adequately. M365 has all kind of possibilities to do better document marking. A very simple one. A more complex one we have is uranium accounting, which we do with our customers like EDF. So we set up secure exchanges with our customers to do uranium accounting by the milligram. Another thing is sharing documents with tricky information in there via cloud solutions like DocuSign. So there's multiple examples where with cyber solutions you are mitigating business risks.
Okay. Then another one. Is there somebody who wants to add on something about this topic, or give another example?
Maybe a good example is I did that in the past with where I worked before, and what I do now currently in my current employer, Cybersprint. The idea is that with getting all the information that your complete digital footprint and your attack surfaces, if you really monitor that correctly and see what's happening out there, you can also see what kind of business risk you have all over the place. So, and where do you have too much services from third parties? So it's you could also, well, I think it's a topic for along the line, but if you look at supply chain risk, it's a business risk in my opinion. Because it's operational resilience risk. If you really use certain tools and or cyber solutions, including procedures, you really can see where is my business risk all over the place and where should I really focus upon to mitigate both the business and the IT risk at the same and the cyber risk at the same time.
So, secure by design. When we talk about cybersecurity, the ideal world is secure by design, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. But what if the business doesn't understand the risk and the impact and they adopt already new innovations? How can we talk about secure by design if there is no business urgency or if we do not see the risk because we don't see the problem? And I make it really clear because it's maybe a weird question. But for example, we have a lot of innovations, and I'm sure all of you use a lot of the innovations. Like, for example, virtual reality. So somebody in the board says, we are going to adopt that innovation, and we are going to start with working with virtual reality environments. Who of you, is some of your company already working with virtual reality? Please raise your hand if you do use virtual reality. Gail, yes? Benno?
Yeah, very small scale in maintenance, but very small. It's just a proof of concept.
Yeah, but so we are adopting virtual reality. But can anybody tell me here, and I'm working in science, so I would love to hear those answers. What are the risks of virtual reality and how can we do secure by design in a virtual reality environment, for example?
Yeah, for maintenance, it's very obvious. If you do, if you give maintenance people, let's say the glasses, and give them instructions while they're doing the maintenance, because you see what they're doing, and then you open up the attack surface, because that information is being exchanged. Is it a secure network on the plant? Is that plant or a network can it be attacked, etc. So virtual reality creates therefore a security risk per definition. And that needs to be then immediately mitigated while you work on those solutions. Oh, you're on mute, Daniel.
No, I was on mute. Sorry. So, Gail, what do you think? Virtual reality? Can we adopt those kind of innovations or Internet of Things? But we are not sure about all the risk and the consequences, and then. What about
I think if we stick to the rules, we are risk managers above all. So if we don't forget our role as risk managers, and whichever technology we insert, and it doesn't matter if it's virtual reality or other technologies that will come tomorrow, if we stick to the rules and we understand the threat environment, and for this we need a lot of intelligence and threat intelligence, cyber threat intelligence. If we stick to this and we analyze and we assure and analyze the technology and we understand well the risk and our environment, then this will work. It doesn't really work when you don't know your risks and you don't run it through a risk management process. When you do it, and the process is quite long because it starts from the enterprise down in the ERM, but also bottom up exercise with all the stakeholders, and it meets somewhere in the middle. And if you don't have this full risk management process in the company, you will come to protect something not good or something that you don't need. But if you are really threat-based and you have a thorough risk management and you are a structured one, then you judge any new technology according to that. So we are, whatever technology we experiment, we are trying to dig, and we are trying to force it, and we are trying to manipulate it, and we are trying to penetrate it and hack it from inside, from outside, in all shapes, in all forms, as part of our process and risk management process. So if you do it and you stick to these rules, you cannot cover everything, of course, but you can at least avoid major mistakes.
Okay, I keep it really simple. So forget the innovation part, but how could it be that last year, and when COVID and the virus came all over the world, all the companies say, okay, from now on, we start working from home. Yes. And applications like Teams, everybody was using it. And I'm really surprised that a lot of the companies start adopting from day one. Okay, now we're going to work from home. Everybody needs to use Teams or whatever, Google Hangout, but had no clue about the consequences from that decision from a cyber and from a risk point of view.
Yeah, I think, Daniel, the problem, and I agree with Gal there, is not the technology that we use, but I think the problem is that how we convey the message. So if I take an example, I'm working with an intern who does his bachelor's and master thesis with me from a school in the Netherlands, and he's writing third-party risk management policies. And so what he's doing, he's actually copying and pasting the text that are in a framework. We're using the ISF, and I said, well, make a contract text of that, something somebody can read. And what he's doing, he's copying and pasting the text from the standards into a contract text, and that's it. So there's for instance, a line there that says, the supplier needs to do identity and access management in line with your company's risk appetite. So who can read that and who can actually understand what that means? Nobody.
So now we go back earlier.
Yeah, we go actually back.
So it's not the technology, it's communication again. So we are not keen in marketing and communication.
No, it goes even not only marketing and communication, but it goes further. We dream up controls and risks. Or we dream up controls and we put risks against risks, and then we put controls against those, and nobody in the business can read and understand the controls we're putting there, because we don't take the next step. We take a framework like the ISO 27001, PCI DSS from the ISF, it doesn't matter, and then it gives you these broad controls. You need to ensure that you have communication secured if you're not on the internal network. And then you want to use Teams, and the business is looking at that. Yeah, well, all right, thank you. And then shoves it to the side because they can't read it. So I think one of the most predominant steps if we adopt new technology is that we as CISOs make sure that the communication that we put out, especially the controls, are understandable and are not a copy of paste from a framework that nobody can understand. Take the next step, dive deeper, and write it in understandable, plain language.
Yeah, and more than this, I totally agree with you. So we have different ISOs and different standards and different because of business needs. So for example, if you work in Europe, you are more using the ISO. If you work in US, for example, in connected, you need the FedRAMP regulations. So we have to listen to the business and live in this environment of regulation and definitely translate it so the first line of defense will understand it and not automatically apply everything. You apply what you need for your business. Otherwise, you just flash it on them, tell them do it, and they will be overwhelmed and they will not do anything. I 100% agree with you. I saw a question popping up, what is secure by design? If I may answer on that, I don't know who ask it from the audience, but secure by design, for example, I can take you into our products. So what we did is secure by design. We identified the main processes of developing new products. And in the products processes, which for us are spiral, we applied certain toll gates of security, that the developers and the designers of the products must click on these toll gates. Then we taught the designers or the engineers what does it mean and how to use it and how to do it. And then when the product is before commercial release, we come a second line of defense and we do an independent assurance on it in a thorough security risk assessment. So this means secure by design. Get it embedded into the engineers, get them know what you want from them, teach them what you want from them, talk in their language, and then you have secure by design.
Yeah, those last
touch ground zero.
Those last 2 points, Gal. Talk their language and teach them. So don't drop any control standards or just something in their lab and say, well, you need to do this, because that would be telling a butcher how to lay bricks. You know, you actually, I think you nailed it there.
Great, thank you. Good add on. Thank you, Gal, for that. So I heard Vincent earlier talking about third parties, and I would like to talk about those about this topic as well. So in the last years, I think maybe IT is becoming the most important business process in company, and we are more depending on IT than ever before. But the ecosystem is growing as well. So nowadays we have many third parties in companies. So I was wondering, how do you build a business aligned cybersecurity ecosystem? Because I think that could be really tough. What do you think, Menno?
Yes, supplier risk is one of the significant risks you have. We do supplier scorecard where we rate the risks of various suppliers, at least for the key suppliers. And then according to the methodologies of these, there's two big IT suppliers providing these kind of methodologies and tools, and then I think we all know them. And then based on that supplier security scoring, you then are supposed to have discussions with your suppliers. But these suppliers are often the really big IT suppliers. So the question is, how can you influence them? What is the information you get from them really the truth or significant enough? So my answer is, yeah, supplier rating, having the discussions with the suppliers on weaknesses, but if it is enough, you never know.
Okay. Patrick, is there something you would like to add on?
Well, I think there are tools available currently that can help you in that realm as well. So apart from setting things in contracts and making sure that your supplier aligns, you can also assess your supplier. You could take a look in your company, compliance, finance, other departments already have tools in place that do rating on companies, and often they have additional information sets in there that you could use for cybersecurity. So they are quite interesting. And I don't want to promote the company of Vincent here, but Cybersprint, you can engage them as well, or possibly Kahuna or another MSSP that can help you do security assessments from the outside as well. Take a look at dark web forums, take a look at the internet, take a look at how services are presented. Are they taking part in panels and talking too much, for instance? That's an option as well. But you could you could do more than just laying back, waiting until something happens, or put it in a contract and then think,
yeah,
my problem is more
really assess this.
Okay, Patrick.
I was saying the same. So there's obvious tools like security scorecards and others where you do this assessment. We're doing that, but then still, in the end, you did your assessment. You look at weaknesses. Can you really how material are those weaknesses? Can you improve on these weaknesses? Is the supplier prepared? Do you kick them out if the risk is too high? That is still the struggle you have to deal with.
But is the problem, okay, let me change the question a little bit, because what I'm trying to say is, look, how many different suppliers do you have in the chain of cyber security?
Yeah, that's the most important.
Is that how can they work together? Because you have one goal. Your company needs to be protected and mitigate as much as possible your risks. So you pick some of the suppliers to work with, but those suppliers need to collaborate as well. So how can you build those ecosystems? Because everybody is fighting for their own puzzle, and sometimes they are even competitors of each other. So that's not always an easy.
So for me the idea is to really you need to understand what are your suppliers in first hand. So of course, hopefully every party where you have a contract with is a supplier, but that's not always the case. So you need to really understand what are the suppliers that I have and what are the third and fourth parties of the suppliers, especially with new regulation coming up with operational resilience in the UK, but also in the EU with DORA. You are responsible to at least know your third, fourth, and fifth supplier, third-party supplier. So the first part is understand what is the landscape that I'm actually have to work with. If you don't have any clue what suppliers you have, and it's in a large organization, it's quite difficult.
Yeah, but some of them can be really big. Yes.
May I suggest a different approach that we took? So definitely it is a challenge. And assurance, we have supplier assurance program like many of you. We don't use automated tools so much. We do it ourselves and we slice it in different layers. Again, it's risk and threat and risk based. So first, have a good security schedule in your contracts. Very good one that obliges the supplier, big or small, to adhere to it, and also choose carefully according to your architecture and the security architecture, your suppliers, with minimum possible overlapping, and then choose the suppliers that are willing to become your partners. Because we are, as a business, we have a lot to offer to big companies. So, for example, we are a lighting company. Okay, we are world leader, but we are still a lighting company. But we happen to have probably one of the largest, if not the largest, IoT network because of the connected devices that we have. This is very sexy, even for Microsoft or big companies. So you turn it into partnerships and you choose the ones that want to partner with you and apply a strong security schedule and develop and grow with you and evolve to the next level of security which is needed. That's the way that we are trying to choose our suppliers, big, medium, or small ones.
And do you also think if you bring it more on a person level, sometimes you hire people, external people for a longer period. Do you think that they need the same introduction training like a new hire person does in your own company?
Yep.
Yeah, obviously that's not a question. But why should there be a difference between a contractor or somebody on the payroll?
I see other things in this world, so it's everybody is laughing. But the ugly truth is that I have seen it so many times, and I can tell you from experience that people of my team are going to a company and they can start directly within one day. So that's why.
Yeah, but you have a highly reputational and highly trusted company, Daniel. All jokes aside, that's actually a failure. And basically what you should do is align with IT on that one. People need access, so they need an account, or they need an email address, or they need something to do, or Citrix, or VDI, or they need a laptop. So the easy thing is, within the onboarding, just have them run the compliance training before you get them any IT access. And if you explain that it will only take 2 hours, and then that 2 hours will give them the fundament band on the introduction day, which is normally a loss because they pick up some stuff and then they go home. Well, before you get your stuff, here you have a laptop, you need to run this training. If you complete it, you can get your stuff. It's quite easy.
So how does this work in Renko?
Same. So the same rules apply for internal and external staff. So first they have a security screening. and then they do the proper training. We check that. So the same procedures apply to external short-term staff as to internal staff. And we check.
So we all agree that we should train those people and give them awareness trainings and make sure that they do understand the kind of risk they could create if they don't behave that well. Okay, so then, because we are also running out of time, and I have one really, well, it's two questions, but let's start with the first one. I want to go back to the business. So could it be possible that we could talk about a top 5 risk global in general for all the companies?
Top 5 security risk, you mean?
No, company risk. Like, yeah, what we need to solve from a cybersecurity point of view. Can we talk about, let's say, a top 5 risks we can mitigate? Is it average in every company? Is there a top 5?
No, I think every company is different there. You know, it depends on what kind of market you work. Who's your competition? If your competition is the Chinese and they try to steal IP, that is a big risk. If you don't have IP, you're in a different situation. If you are under certain regulation like pharma or nuclear, then that risk, the risk for your patients or the risk for society needs to be mitigated. You know, I think it's pretty specific.
I think it's more general than specific. Yeah, it's specific to each industry and business, but then you find common grounds. For example, if somebody is trying to steal an IP from a business by, let's say, stealing a credential and scrolling to the servers where the patents, non-filed patents are still stored, then we have an issue of an identity theft. And if you control your identity, well, whether it's for external or internal access, then you have a mitigation. So I think if we go to the higher level, we can probably come with a short list. Which I mentioned, one of them, identity for us, for example, represents the real frontier today is the identity. And this is what we are trying to protect. Even most of the ransomware attacks are starting 70 or 75%, according to statistics, starting with a simple identity theft. Credential theft, so phishing. So we can, if we really purify the risk and go to higher level, we can come with a short list. Whether it's 3, 5, or 10, it's probably industry and business related.
I
agree.
I think you can draft a list of 5 compliance problems, Daniel. I'm not really fond of always talking about risk, because the risk methodologies I've seen in the last couple of years for companies that need to get the basics right are way too big of an overhead. So you're talking about risk, and still you're in the trenches ensuring that the basics are getting right. So you can talk about the top 5 of compliance problems that most companies have that you should address. Asset management, so protecting of what you have and knowing what you have that you should protect. So that's one. The second one we already touched upon is awareness training and compliance to that training. Those are things that you need to fix, and that's always a company problem. Vulnerability management and patching, and possibly AV. I think that are the top 5 that every company struggles with, where the latter can be discussable, but can be discussed. But I think that's where you can talk. But if you talk about company risks, you need to look at the verticals.
If you interview 5 CEOs of global companies, do you think, and you ask them, what would be the biggest nightmare? Do you think that they would give different answers?
Currently, no. I think they'll tell you going out of business due to a ransomware attack. I think that will be the answer.
Outage in general, and that could be a ransomware attack. They're not sure if they will mention a ransomware attack.
Yeah, I think they will. I think there has been enough traction on that.
I think so.
Acer, $50 million, something like that.
And the stealing of IP.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So we agree that if we ask the CEO, that well, maybe they could give 2 or 3 different answers, but that would count for a lot of the CEOs. If we go to the CFO and we ask that person, what do you think that would be the biggest nightmare for the CFO? What would For
Yeah, I think the same ones, and then including
but for his spot,
the-
his focus
so
area.
the same as the CEO, and then including the theft of liquid funds. So actually going into the streams of purchasing and selling, and actually going into the invoices and things like that. So the fraud part of invoicing.
This first, probably before fraud disruption of the
Yeah.
finance system, like SAP or etc. So, yeah, of course, there are commonalities, and they will probably express it more or less the same or almost the same.
Or compliant yearly figures, because that's actually that could be they could end up in jail if they don't have the right write-up from a accountancy firm because they don't have the right figures from their company. So, and that's more compliancy, financial compliancy based, of course.
Yeah.
So Patrick, you told me you work really close with marketing and communication. So
Yep.
the CMO may possibly your best friend in town. So tell me, what would the CMO say?
The CMO.
Yes.
See about what? What the risks are?
About the risk. What would be his biggest nightmare?
So my CMO would tell me, because of the double function, it would be a GDPR and HR related information and the theft of the exposure of that, which is on the top of the mind. It's a combined function, CMO and HR. So they don't see.
What do you think?
They see it from reputation risk.
The CMO.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Patrick.
No problem.
I think our CMO would give the answer that we're overdoing it with security, that he cannot do business anymore with his customer, and that we're restricting him too much.
That would be his biggest nightmare.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what I'm trying to say is, look, if we ask the board members of a company, that most of the time they would all give the same answer. So it's really interesting.
Because I agree with you. Also, coming back on the CMO, of course, he's also afraid that his prices, his offerings in the Chinese or the also Russian markets, that his commercial figures would leak. That they have more that the competition has more insight than they should have. So I agree with you, Daniel, with what you were summarizing.
Well, and this is also maybe it was look. Well, we are almost, the hour is gone, and the only thing, my goal for today was to get a better understanding about, the maturity, where are we, and at the end, that we are with so many people here in the Netherlands in the cybersecurity industries. If you are the CISO, the CSO, the CIO, the CFO who's responsible in the company for the cybersecurity, we have many vendors, distributors, integrators, and everybody is fighting to protect the companies. But if we go back to the basic, maybe there are 5 or 10 top risks we need to mitigate. And if we would all communicate more with each other and learn from each other in this ecosystem, then maybe the world could be a little bit easier for all of us. So thank you very much for joining this panel session and for all the interaction and all the questions. Thank you, audience, for listening. And if you have further questions, well, please let Willem know. And I think there's still an amazing day. Willem has a great schedule for today. So thank you, everybody, again.
It was my pleasure, Daniel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.